When you have high stress in your life, does the way you deal with that stress actually make your life worse? Like you end up in a better place, both physically and emotionally, because of the way you're dealing with the stress, not just because of the stress. Well, if you are this person, make sure you watch this video because I've got some pretty cool insights that I think you'll like. So recently I heard a really interesting story. Someone I kind of know in the periphery of my life, their parent passed away, and in their family it's obviously a pretty kind of horrible time when a parent passes away in a family. It was an older parent, but it was still a pretty sad passing that went along. And their family kind of got together as soon as the parent passed away, and there's one person in their family who has a drinking problem. They had a drinking problem pretty much their whole adult life. And the family got together, and not long after the family got together, this person removed themselves from the family and went home. And ultimately, this person went home so they could drink alcohol. And this caused a real disruption in the family. The family felt it was the wrong thing to do to leave in such an important time just to go home to have a drink. Now, this is a really interesting moment to really kind of dig deep into when you think about dealing with stress. Because unfortunately for a lot of people out there, when they have stressful moments, and let's be honest, a death is a pretty stressful moment, but in all levels of stress, unfortunately for a lot of people, the way they deal with stress often makes their life worse. So if we think of this person who had to remove themselves from their family to get to alcohol to deal with that place, there's kind of lots of problems with this. They probably felt bad about themselves. They probably drank to a level that wasn't that healthy, that created a disconnect in their family, and so on and so on. And often this is what happens when we feel stress, is the way we deal with stress for some people can actually make our life worse. Now, I've been thinking about this story a lot recently. I've been thinking about this kind of concept of a familiar place. And what is a familiar place? Well, a familiar place is a place that I go to that makes me feel safe when I am struggling. I'll say it again because I think it's really important. A familiar place, or this term that I've come up with here called a familiar place, is a place that I go to when I feel I need safety in my life and it feels familiar. Now, the thing about the familiar place concept is it doesn't necessarily mean it's a good thing for me. It's just a place that I can go to. And I imagine for this person, and I haven't spoken to the person with the drinking problem, but in this high time of stress, they needed a familiar place to go to. And for that person, that familiar place was alcohol. Now, unfortunately, their familiar place was a familiar place that came at a cost to their life. Now, think about yourself. When you're in a time of high stress or something really bad happens in your life, where's the place that you need to go to that helps you deal with that place? Now, again, for some people, that's a bad place. It might be alcohol, it might be smoking tobacco, it might be a place of violence or something like that. So for some people, the way they deal with this, let's be honest, for a lot of people, it's comfort eating. So the familiar place has a cost. And then I think of someone like myself who developed a healthy, familiar place. So for me, my familiar place is to go and do exercise. It was really interesting in the COVID period in my life. I've taught group fitness for over 25 years of my life, and I've never actually thought of it as a stress release in my life. It's just something I love doing. But through the COVID period, I had some moments where I was pretty highly stressed and feeling very insecure and vulnerable. And then I'd go and teach a fitness class, and it was such a cool place for me because it was a familiar place, but it was also a positive place in my life. And luckily for me in my life, I've developed these familiar places. They're my places where I need to go to in times of insecurity and vulnerability and stress that actually just make me feel safe and that I'm okay, but also are a positive thing in my life. So for me, it's doing some exercise. For me, it's jumping on my piano. For me, it's writing my journal. And so as I'm kind of talking about this right now, what I want you to think about is reflecting upon yourself. Where is your familiar place? That place that you need to go to give you a sense of, I'm okay right now, or I'm dealing with this right now. Now, for some people, as you reflect upon this, is your familiar place an unhealthy familiar place? Or does it come at a cost that makes your life worse? And if it is, one project that you want to start working on in your life is developing a healthy familiar place. It might be to bring an exercise component in. It might be just have somebody to connect with that you know you can trust and explore and open up to in a really healthy way. It might be some kind of creative endeavor. If you can start to develop a healthy, familiar place, when the times in life with stress and challenge and all those life things happen, let's be honest, it always happens. That's life. We've got to deal with these things. If we can have a healthy, familiar place, well, A, you're going to deal with those stresses in a healthy way, but B, you feel better about yourself after the fact and there's less cost along the way. So if you are watching this and you know deep down that the way you deal, or at least your familiar place, comes at a cost, one project for you to really start thinking about in your life is, how do I develop a new familiar place that's a healthy familiar place? And a really good criteria to put around this is as simple as this is, would that familiar place have no cost on the other side of it, or would it make me feel better about myself? Now, you have to do some work and you have to develop this side of yourself. But if you can be the person who moves away from alcohol and moves towards something like doing some creative drawing or doing music or connecting or movement, I guarantee your hard times in your life will actually be an empowering place, not a place that comes at a huge cost.